Hello, and welcome back to NUS Now. I'm Daniel Farris, and today we're going to be discussing how half-hourly data and a traceable supply work in practice. Now, this topic is obviously very on point. If you've watched any of our previous podcasts, we discussed data quality and the GHG Scope 2 protocol consultation. Today, we've been fortunate enough to bring in Smartest Energy, one of our key suppliers. Holly, Chris, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Very good yourself.
Yeah, very good, thank you. Now, this is a new product. I was wondering if you could give me a bit more of a background as to how you're involved with this and how it goes towards customers.
Sure. So as I said earlier, my name's Holly. I'm the product manager at Smartest Energy, and I own the design and delivery of our Traceable supply product. So as you said, a bit of a hot topic at the moment, going from annual matching to hourly matching now. Customers don't really want to see that they're 100% renewable anymore. They actually want to prove it and show it. And that is why we designed Traceable Supply to solve that gap.
And my name is Chris Airy. I'm a key account manager at Smartest Energy. My role is very much more on the customer focus side. So customers will come to me with their business requirements, whether it's a case of educating them as to where the market's going or to assist them in their sustainable journey.
Perfect. Thank you very much, both. Now, Chris, in terms of being on the customer-facing side, and I suppose this is also, as something Holly alluded to earlier, the idea of customer requirements have been changing over time in terms of their outlook at their renewable generation and what they get back. Can you discuss that a bit more and what's changed from before until now?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of this has stemmed from changes in kind of legislation and kind of certain sectors of the market. So the RE100 requirement, for example, is probably one of the key ones for this. So rather than moving away from just annual matching, there needs to be that level of granularity now that customers need to be able to prove and demonstrate that they are kind of moving along the sustainable journey. But it isn't just RE100 compliant customers that are impacted by this. It could be supply chain pressures from other areas of their business. So it might be that they develop a product that someone else uses and they're expecting their supply chain to move along this journey as well. Or it could be that they're just wanting to be kind of on the latest innovative product and kind of future-proofing themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of it is the outward facing too. So not just in the business reaching their corporate targets, but making sure that outwards they're displaying it to any relevant stakeholders, and especially on the general public side too. So Holly, when it comes to actually building this product, how did these changes in requirements alter the way in which you go about building it?
So it was originally assumption-based reporting, and now that's totally out. We're coming in with a lot more transparent, evidence-led, and backed by real data. So we've gone from products that tell a story to products now that can actually show and evidence it.
Amazing. And as you were saying, there's the pressure to do this, the evidence-based granularity and auditability is really important. Well, some people may ask, why hasn't this been done sooner? Is this just purely pressure from stakeholders and guidance that's come out recently?
Well, I'd say we're in quite a gray area at the moment. It's not something that's happened yet, and I think it's quite confusing for, I'd say, Chris can back me up here, on customers. Do they do this now? Do they wait and see what happens? How do we do it? No one knows, and change is scary for everyone. So yeah, it's a bit of a weird area at the moment, but I think taking the lead in this now will really help you later.
And I think there was that degree of almost comfortability as well. So historically, it was very much your annual reporting kind of tick the box for the business. But with the way the market's going, we're seeing a lot of big multinational companies that are starting to do this as well. So companies like Google are very much front and center, and they're looking to do this across the world. And a lot of it is, if Google are doing it, should I be doing it as well? So that's partly where the market's going, seeing other companies doing it. But as I said previously, it's also a case of some companies are also being forced to do it as well, such as RE100 and the Greenhouse Building Council customers as well. So it's kind of a mix of big companies doing it and changes in the kind of legislature as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really interesting to hear. Obviously, as I mentioned before, we discussed the GHG Protocol Scope 2 consultation, which, although set to be released in the coming years, it's important we get this ready now because there's no point in having surprises for businesses who are trying to plan as much as possible.
Absolutely.
But in terms of the real world usage of this, Holly, in terms of using half-hourly data, what does this really mean for customers going forward on the traceable supply?
One word and one word only: visibility. They never got to see that before. It was just on a trust kind of based like evidence, like, here, Chris, this is what I used for this year. Now, actually, Chris, I can show you an evidence hour by hour. And that just shows like the confidence in reporting that's coming from the customers now. So we just want to show them the real nitty-gritties of it.
Yeah, that's understandable, especially in more of the location based of where the generation is actually taking place as well, because that's also going to be key in some of the changes coming up and around. But I suppose this granularity, this auditability, and most importantly, I suppose, the transparency, how does this really change client and customer behavior, Chris, in the downstream aspect?
So it's kind of broken down into two parts, I suppose. The product itself is still 100% REGO matched. So that's something that will be done as part of the product setup. The advantage of this product as well is you'll also get a carbon-free energy score as well. So you'll actually be able to see what percentage of your consumption is based around actual matched generation. So it might be that as part of this process, your CFE score is 40%, which means that you've got 40% of your consumption that is matched against real-time generation. And that will then help aid customers in regards to maybe changing their usage patterns. It could be driving conversations internally around, do we need to optimize? Do we need to invest in things like solar panels, for example, or battery storage? And it isn't a case of a low CFE score is a bad thing. It's the complete opposite. It's something where it will then enable you to have almost more data-led conversations internally, because you've got visibility of that through the platform that we also use as well. So you've got that comfortability of knowing you're 100% matched, but you've also got the additional benefit of the CFE score as well.
That's really interesting to hear, and I'm sure that's a large amount of relief for clients as well, that there's, for example, a platform that you'll be able to access and see how it's being, how it's changing over time too. So in terms of what you were talking about there with your CFE score being approximately 40%, for example, am I right in saying that this is your hourly matching time, and then the rest of that 60% is obviously going to be matched with green electricity? But how does that alter throughout the year, for example? Could you have 40% in winter and it get higher in summer, or what sort of patterns do you expect to see?
So it's based on like your yearly usage. So you'll get a yearly CFE score, but you can also break that down into much more detailed granularity. So you can see on a daily basis, monthly basis, seasonal basis as well. So it might be that if you're particularly energy intensive during the summer, you would get a higher CFE score. So summer, for example, could be 65, 70% potentially. However, in the winter, if you're, again, quite seasonally heavy in the winter, with the sun not shining as much, it might be a case of that is then not what drags your score down, but then reduces the average accordingly. Or if you're quite heavily nighttime usage, for example, that would also impact your CFE score. And it's that granularity that you'll be able to see that will then dictate the kind of conversations you're having internally. Can we move consumption? Do we look into battery optimization, for example, where we can offload battery storage into more peak usage times, for example? Or can we shift loads from winter to summer, for example? So it is based on a yearly average, but you'll be able to really drill down into that as well.
Perfect. Thank you for providing the clarity on that. Now, Holly, traceable supply in itself, obviously, as what we've been discussing, can appear quite abstract. So can you tell me a bit more about what it really means?
Sure. So let me talk about it just from a product perspective. So traceable supply, it's super easy, especially for new customers. They can easily get onboarded onto this product. It's no big data or IT-led approach. It's super easy. For an existing customer, it's a real smooth transition to switch onto it. And And when they get access to this platform, which is in partnership with Granular Energy, they get to see a very clear view on how their energy is being matched over a short time. With regards to this platform, they get access to it 24/7. So they're allowed to go on whenever they want and see how their consumption is doing with their generation. They can see the carbon impact. They can see the names of the generators, so they know exactly where their energy is coming from. With that, with all this information on it, they get interim reports as well as annual reports, as Chris was referring to earlier. And most importantly, they follow the RE100 guidelines, so we don't have any generators that are younger than 15 years old. We'd also adhere to the UK GBC recommendations with the time and location-based reporting. And yes, it is a premium product, but it's value-led.
Yeah, absolutely. That's completely understandable. And I assume in that sense then that, not necessarily everybody will get access to this as a standard supplier. You're looking for people who are really wanting to go the extra step in their decarbonisation journey.
Yeah.
Circling this back round then to what this really means for the customer side, Chris, would you be able to explain a bit more about, the usage of this platform and what the entirety of this traceable supply really means for customers and why it should matter?
So it's very much allowing them to have data-led conversations. These could be used for auditing purposes. You can put it on your website and you can really make this a marketing piece to say, look, this is us. This is what we are doing to be as sustainable as possible. It also enables them to have more visibility of their usage as well, rather than just relying on a certificate. They'll actually be able to see and drill down into their usage. So it will enable them to have it will tick compliance boxes. For example, if they're getting pressured from maybe a parent company or supply chain, it would enable them to have more conversations around their usage. It might be a case of they can shift their usage load. So it's enabling them to have much more focused conversations internally, as well as kind of ticking a lot of boxes, whether it's RE100, supply chain, parental kind of pressures. So it works in a multitude of factors.
Absolutely. And I suppose the biggest thing that people are going to question about this is, first of all, either I have a standard meter at the moment, so I can't get access to half-hourly data, or I already have a half-hourly data and I want to move on to that traceable supply. So would you be able to discuss a bit more about the challenges that might be posed by moving from a half-hourly to the traceable supply?
So depending on who is maybe the decision maker in the business, it might be a case of, why do we need this? So it's going to be challenging, such as justifying the need. As Holly mentioned, it is a premium product. So it's something where you need to be able to almost justify internally the expense if you are getting pressures from elsewhere in the business. The challenges as if you have non-half-hourly metering setups, for example, at the moment, they aren't eligible because they haven't got that half-hourly granularity. However, that challenge will be removed with the transition to market-wide. So that is another issue. It could be the current metering setup. It could also be kind of where you are on your sustainable journey. So this might be something that may not play a part in your journey for another few years as yet. So it might be a case of, we don't need this right now, but it could be a case of, we actually need this in a few years' time. So there's kind of a few justifications there. Why do we need it? Why do we need to pay this premium when it may not necessarily be needed for us at the moment? And the current metering setup that the business has.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of complexity within that. And I was wondering, maybe Holly, you can talk about this a bit further, but how does the product design manage this complexity and these sorts of fears?
So we give the customer a really clear, easy, digestible dashboard, because obviously seeing a lot of data on a dashboard does get quite scary. But the platform's super easy to use. Smartest Energy is here to help, and we really want to help you tell your new story.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the key things potentially that businesses will be looking out for as well is the idea of greenwashing. Something like this, you think it provides a lot more traceability and auditability to definitely mitigate those sorts of fears?
Absolutely. because with this product, you've got the name generator, so you can see where they're coming from. You've got the REGO IDs, so it's actually traceable back to the off-gen register, should you need to use that as well. So you've got a lot more evidence to say, these are my REGOs.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of using that in a real world example, then, is there anything that you've experienced, you've seen, that you can showcase really to say that this is effective?
Absolutely. So we initially done a trial with some select customers who came to us to say this is something that they need to do on their sustainability journey. So we had JLL come to us, big managing agency, who said, we need this product, and we were able to facilitate that as well. So we used them as well as another handful of customers for a trial, and then we managed to go live successfully. We've actually been working with yourselves and a number of your customers who have actually moved onto this product as well. So it may be that they've had to move on to it because of their RE100 kind of requirement for that, but they're also looking to progress on their sustainable journey as well, which is really exciting to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
As Chris says, I mean, Smartest Energy is all for partnerships, and being in product, we thrive on customer feedback, and that's what we want with this traceable supply product. We want to put customers on, if something's not happy or they think this could be better, that's what we want to do, it continuously improve it.
Yeah, absolutely. And thinking of that continuous improvement aspect, obviously we mentioned the regulatory pressures coming about. What should organizations think about next going forward, if in terms of what their next steps would be with their traceable supplies, their half-hourly supplies, or even what are the next steps for someone who doesn't have a half-hourly supply at the moment?
So a lot of this will kind of evolve around where they see themselves in the next few years. So we're seeing more and more customers that aren't just looking to the next 12 months, they're looking to the next 24, 36 months. So we're very much seeing that they're having more conversations around where their future is going to be. It might be that, unfortunately, at the moment, they're unable to benefit from this product due to their metering setup. However, once market-wide comes through, we can then obviously start to have these conversations as non-half-hourly meters will start to be settled as half-hourly, so we can move them onto the product. And it might be that they're looking to maybe do this in the next couple of years, so we can start to have conversations around how this works for them, demonstrate the platform, and really aid them in the conversations that they're having internally. So it isn't something that they just need to do alone. They can come to us and say, this is where we see ourselves in 2-3 years' time. Can you assist with this? And we can certainly do that.
Yeah, I'd say, get ahead of the curve, take action rather than just waiting for things to happen to you. Collaborate, use our product. It's super easy. It's super easy to use, to just see exactly what's going on with your consumption at the moment. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And I suppose on the usability aspect, as you were saying, the functionality of it's very easy. In terms of actually transitioning onto it as well, is that much of a commitment for the clients too?
So there's two ways they can go about it. So they can either wait for a renewal point, in which case they'd kind of finish their current fuel type, whether it's conventional, renewable standard, renewable natural, and they can then move on to traceable from the renewal point. What we can also do as well is, if they've already signed up to a contract with us for the next few years, for example, we can do a mid-contract variation. So they don't need to wait for a renewal point to renew onto this product. We can do a mid-contract variation as well. From a new business perspective, we can absolutely have these conversations at the point that they're looking to move on to our supply. So if it's something they want to do and they want to move to us for this product, we can absolutely do that as well. So we can make it very easy. If they're looking to do a mid-contract variation, it's just a variation document just to amend their contract to say they were on natural, they're now on traceable, or alternatively, we can do it at the point of renewal. So we can make it very easy.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Holly?
Yeah, and I was going to say, Smartest Energy does all the heavy lifting. I think the contract part is probably the heaviest part of it. But other than that, we handle the rest for you.
Perfect. Holly, Chris, thank you very much for joining me today to discuss the Traceable Supply product, which is out currently.
It is indeed.
Correct.
Perfect. Glad to hear. And thank you for listening. Now, we will obviously be back in the future with podcasts to come. However, we do ask that you obviously send in some questions that you might have, any topics that you want us to discuss, to the links in the description or via our website. We'll then obviously look to address them in future episodes. But for the meantime, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you soon.